The twin suns of Velmorinine burned hot in the sky, casting long shadows across the rocky hills and deep purple sand. A lone man walked through the wasteland, his boots crunching against the dry ground. His name was Jake, an earthborn miner, working on the edge of the known galaxy. He liked it quiet. He liked being left alone. After all, he had left Earth to escape the noise, the cities, the pain of losing someone he once loved. Jake adjusted the strap on his dusty satchel and moved toward the small outpost he had built himself. He had spent the past 3 years mining crystal veins under the rocky cliffs. The money was decent, and nobody asked questions out here. He liked that. But on this day, something felt different in the air. He couldn't explain it. A strange buzzing sound tickled the edge of his hearing. The winds were too calm. Even the small insect-like creatures that usually zipped past him were silent. That's when he saw her. At first, she looked like a ghost, glowing faintly against the sunlight. She stood at the edge of a cliff, staring directly at him. Her skin shimmered with soft golden tones, her long silver hair flowing in the breeze as if it moved on its own. Her clothes were torn, almost royal in design but stained with dirt and strange blue blood. She looked hurt and scared. But what hit Jake the hardest was the expression in her eyes. Desperation. She stumbled forward and then dropped to her knees. Jake ran toward her, half out of instinct, half out of confusion. "Hey, are you okay? Who are you?" he asked, kneeling beside her. She grabbed his wrist with a strength that surprised him. Her fingers were warm, too warm. "Human," she whispered, voice shaking. "You must marry me. Now." Jake blinked, unsure if he heard her right. "What?" She looked up at him, eyes wide with fear. "Please, there's no time. If you don't, I will vanish. Forever." Jake looked around, expecting hidden cameras or some kind of prank. But there was no one. Just the wind and the eerie silence. He looked back at her. Are you serious?" She nodded quickly, then pulled up the sleeve of her arm. There was a strange, glowing mark on her wrist, like a tattoo made of light. But the edges of it were fading fast, flickering like a dying flame. Jake stared at it. "What is that?" "It's the bond seal," she said. "It was placed on me when I escaped. It only lasts a short time unless a willing partner accepts it. I chose you. I didn't know who you were, but now you're my only chance." "You're what?" Before she could answer, the sky cracked open with a loud sonic boom. Jake looked up and gasped. 3 dark figures dropped from a hovering ship high above. Huge, armored beings with helmets and heavy weapons. They landed in a triangle formation, kicking up dust as their boots hit the ground. Their armor was black with red glowing lines, and they scanned the area with beeping devices. The girl's grip on Jake's wrist tightened. "They found me," she said. "We have to run. Now." Jake hesitated. His brain screamed at him to back away. This wasn't his problem. He didn't even know this girl, this alien. He didn't know her anything. But something deep inside his chest pulled him forward. Her voice, her eyes, the fear she carried. It wasn't fake. It was real. So he stood up, pulled her to her feet. "Come on." They ran. Over dunes and through cracked canyons, chased by soldiers who fired bursts of red plasma. The heat from the shots burned the air near their heads. Jake didn't look back. He just kept moving, holding her hand, guiding her through paths he knew well. They reached a hidden cave near the edge of a ridge, Jake's emergency shelter. He slammed the door shut behind them and dropped to the ground, breathing hard. The girl collapsed beside him. Jake turned to her. "Okay, I just ran from 3 armored murder machines because of you, so you better start talking." She didn't reply right away. Instead, she looked down at her arm. The glowing mark had faded even more. Just a faint outline remained now. She met his eyes again. "My name is Leorad," she said. "And if you don't help me, my body will disappear from this world." And my soul will return to a prison I barely escaped. Jake stared at her, heart pounding. What kind of prison? He asked slowly. She answered with trembling lips. Marriage. To a monster. The cave was dark and quiet, except for the distant hum of the alien soldiers searching outside. Jake sat near the wall, staring at the strange girl who had turned his quiet life upside down in just 1 hour. Her name was Leora. Her skin shimmered faintly even in the shadows. She had curled up on the floor like a wounded animal, hugging her knees, her silver hair tangled and falling across her face. Jake didn't know what to do. He didn't believe in fate, magic, or aliens needing human husbands. But he had seen the fear in her eyes. He had seen the glowing mark on her wrist, and he had seen it slowly fading, just like she said. Something about her story. It felt real, even if it didn't make sense. Finally, he spoke. Tell me what's going on. The truth. All of it. Leora didn't look at him right away. Her voice was soft when she answered, as if afraid someone might hear. I was born on a world far from here, a place your people don't even know exists. It's called Thalzer. My family is royal, but royalty there is not the same as here. It is a curse. We are controlled from birth. She lifted her arm, showing the glowing mark again. It was thinner now, almost a ghost. This is not just a seal. It is a chain. When I was a child, they told me I would marry the future ruler of the Zoruk Dominion. He is cruel, powerful. His name is Varnak. Jake frowned. So you're saying this Varnak guy forced you into marriage? Leora nodded. Yes. When I refused, they locked me in a temple. My soul was marked. The only way to break the bond was to find a new mate, a willing one. But it had to be someone outside our world. Someone who could not be controlled by our laws. Jake rubbed his forehead. Let me guess. That someone is me. You were the first human I saw when I arrived. The bond chose you. Jake laughed bitterly. Great. Lucky me. Leora didn't smile. Her expression was serious, sad. If I don't complete the bond soon, my body will fade. My energy will return to the binding crystal, and Varnak will summon me back. I won't have a choice, and this time there won't be another chance to escape. Jake looked at her again. She was strange. Beautiful, yes, but broken, fragile in a way he couldn't fully understand. He wasn't sure if he believed everything she said, but the fear in her eyes was not fake. I don't even know you, Jake said quietly. You just showed up, asked me to marry you, and brought death machines to my doorstep. I didn't want to, she whispered, but the bond pulled me here. I followed it. I ran for days. My ship was destroyed. I walked across the sands just to find you. There was silence for a long time. Outside, the wind howled. Jake stood up and walked to a small metal locker in the wall. He opened it, took out a bottle of water, and handed it to her. Leora drank like she hadn't tasted water in years. He sat down again and sighed. So what exactly happens if we do this bond thing? Leora wiped her lips and looked at him. If you say the words of acceptance, if you agree with your heart, the bond will complete. The seal will change color. I will be safe. Varnak won't be able to reach me again. And we're married. In the eyes of the galaxy, yes. But I know your kind is different. You don't have to love me. Not now. Just help me survive. Jake leaned back, staring at the ceiling of the cave. This is insane. He remembered the last time someone asked him to trust again. Years ago. Her name was Emily. She had promised him forever. Then she left. No goodbye, just a message on his comm. He had closed his heart after that. Chose silence. Chose this planet. And now an alien princess was asking him to say yes to something far bigger than himself. Before he could answer, a loud noise shook the cave. Boom. The entrance flashed red. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Dust filled the air. They found us, Leora shouted. Jake jumped up, pulling her behind him. He grabbed an old plasma tool, used for mining, but it could work as a weak weapon. The door shook again. "We have to go," Leora said, panic rising in her voice. "If they take me." "They won't," Jake said firmly. He opened the hidden back tunnel, a narrow path that led into the mountains. They crawled through tight spaces, dodging falling rocks and the echo of enemy footsteps behind them. Hours passed. When they finally stopped, they were deep in a frozen canyon, far from the outpost. Jake lit a small fire from a thermal cell and wrapped Leora in a thick blanket. She was shaking now, her mark almost gone, just a tiny spark left. Jake sat beside her. "I don't know you," he said quietly, "but I can't watch you fade." She turned her head slowly. "Then say it." Jake looked at the stars above. He took a deep breath. His voice trembled, just a little. "I accept the bond. I don't know what it means. I don't know where this will go. But I accept it." The silence stretched long. Then the air shifted. Leora gasped as the mark on her arm flared with brilliant golden light. It pulsed, wrapped around her skin like a ring of fire, then slowly dimmed to a soft blue glow. She looked at Jake with tears in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. "You saved me." Jake didn't answer. He just stared at the light. But deep down he knew. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. Snow began to fall lightly over the canyon as the fire flickered between the rocks. Jake sat close to it, his face lit by the orange glow. Across from him, Leora stared at her arm. The mark had changed completely. No longer flickering or fading, it now pulsed softly with a calm blue hue, like a heartbeat. She looked stronger now, like the fading sickness had left her body. But her expression was still tense, like a storm waited behind her eyes. Jake watched her for a long time before he spoke. "So what now?" he asked quietly. Leora looked up. "Now we wait for the enemy to come back. Because they won't stop." Jake frowned. "I thought the bond would keep you safe." "It will," she said. "But Varnuk, he won't give up. Not until he sees with his own eyes that the bond is complete. Or until he kills you." Jake stood up and walked to the edge of the canyon. He stared at the sky, where the stars had started to appear. The air was cold and sharp. Everything in him wanted to run away, to go back to his quiet life. But something inside had changed. He had said the words. He had accepted the bond. Whether he liked it or not, he was now part of something far bigger than mining crystals in a desert. He turned back toward her. "Then we fight." Leora looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. "You would fight for me." "I already have," Jake said. "And if I don't understand this whole thing yet, that's fine. But no one gets to own you. Not him. Not anyone." A faint smile tugged at the edge of Leora's lips. They packed what little supplies they had and began the trek to the mountains. Jake knew of an old science facility hidden deep in the ridges, abandoned by Earth's forces years ago when the project funding dried up. He had found it once while exploring, half buried in snow and silence. It might still have working tech. He hoped. They traveled through narrow cliffs and icy winds. Leora walked beside him, her breathing steady. She told him more about her home world, how the royal bloodline was controlled by ancient codes, how children were trained from birth to serve the empire. Her voice was flat, emotionless, like she had told the story too many times. Jake listened quietly. Finally, they reached the old science base. The structure was made of smooth gray metal, half covered by rocks and frost. Jake entered the override codes, and the door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the lights flickered weakly, but they worked. The place smelled like rust and old electricity. They settled into a small room near the center of the base. Jake activated a console, and the screen came alive with soft blue light. He ran a scan on Leora's arm using one of the remaining medical tools. The results made no sense. "Your biology is part light, part matter," he said, confused. Leora nodded. My kind evolved differently. Our emotions fuel parts of our body. The bond seal connects more than skin. It connects fate. Jake didn't say anything. He just kept staring at the screen. Suddenly, the console began to beep. A warning flashed. Unauthorized vessel DTCTED. High-class energy signature. Incoming. Leora stepped back, eyes wide. It's him. The screen showed an image, something descending from orbit. A long, dark ship shaped like a dagger. It cut through the clouds like lightning. Jake felt his stomach twist. They tracked the bond. Leora whispered, "He knows I'm alive. He knows I'm with someone." The alarm stopped. Silence returned. Jake turned to her. "We don't have long. If we're going to fight back, I need to understand what this bond really did to me." Leora hesitated. "You're connected now. Your body carries a small piece of my energy. It protects me, but it also makes you a target." "Great," Jake muttered. "Any upside?" "You might change." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Change how?" Before she could answer, the walls of the facility shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. A deep roar echoed through the halls. Then a voice spoke, cold, deep, and full of power. It came from everywhere. "Leora of Thalzur, I have come for you." Leora froze. Jake grabbed his old mining rifle. "Is that Varnak?" She nodded slowly. "He's here." They rushed into the control room and looked at the main screen. Outside the base, a tall figure stood at the entrance, 7 feet tall, draped in dark armor that moved like liquid metal. His helmet had sharp red eyes, glowing like embers. Behind him, 10 elite soldiers stood in formation, weapons raised. Jake felt his blood go cold. Leora stepped forward. Her voice was steady. "We completed the bond, Varnak. You can't take me." The voice returned, this time with laughter. "The bond means nothing. You chose a human. Weak, soft. I will break him, then take you by force." Jake clenched his fists. He had been called weak before, forgotten, left behind. But this was different. He looked at Leora. She was ready to fight for him. He was ready to fight for her. The door began to melt from the outside, glowing red-hot. Jake turned to her. "You said I might change. When does that start?" Leora touched his chest. Her hand glowed with light. "Now." The next second, the door exploded inward, and Varnak stepped through the smoke. The final battle had just begun. The door crashed inward with a force that sent metal shards flying through the air. The fire from the blast flickered against the cold, silver walls of the old science facility. Smoke poured in, and through the thick haze stepped a towering figure. Varnak. He was even more terrifying in person. His armor rippled like it was alive, shifting shape as he walked. Red veins of energy pulsed through it with each step, like blood beneath steel skin. His eyes glowed from behind a sharp mask, and his presence filled the entire room like a black hole sucking the air from the world. Jake didn't back down. He stood in front of Leora, his body tense, rifle held firm. Varnak tilted his head as he looked at Jake. "So this is the human, the weak one." Jake's voice was calm but steady. "And you must be the monster." Varnak laughed, a cold, echoing sound that made the walls shake. "You think bonding with her makes you strong. You don't know what strength is. That was never love. That was desperation." Jake didn't flinch. "Maybe. But it was my choice." Behind him, Leora stepped forward. Her voice was clear. "The bond is real. You can't control me anymore. I'm not yours." Varnak's mask twisted, and his voice dropped lower. "You belong to the Empire. Your blood carries the code. You think some Earth insect can change that?" Without warning, he raised his hand, and a surge of red energy shot toward Jake. Leora moved first. She threw up her arm, and a golden shield of light burst from her palm, blocking the attack. The force pushed them both back. but they didn't fall. Jake looked at her in shock. Lyra's eyes glowed. "He's connected to me now," she said. "Every time you try to harm him, I will stop you." Varnock lowered his hand. "Then let's test how strong your bond really is." He snapped his fingers. From the smoke behind him, elite soldiers charged in. Tall, silent, armored like shadows. They moved fast, faster than anything Jake had ever seen. He fired first. The mining rifle wasn't built for combat, but the first shot hit one of the soldiers square in the chest, sending him flying into the wall. Lyra joined him, raising both hands. Twin streams of golden energy blasted from her palms, hitting two more enemies with a burst of heat and light. Still, more kept coming. Jake ducked as a blade swung past his head. He grabbed a metal rod from the wall and smashed it into the soldier's helmet. The alien stumbled. Jake moved again, faster now. His reflexes felt sharper, his vision clearer. He could feel something pulsing inside his body. Lyra's energy. The bond had started to change him. He could feel it. He wasn't just defending her anymore. He was fighting with her. Side by side. They moved through the hallway, dodging attacks, trading blows, using the facility itself as a shield. Sparks flew. Walls cracked. Energy blasts shook the structure. For every enemy they dropped, two more appeared. Varnock never moved from the doorway. He watched, waiting. Then Jake saw it, his chance. He grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her into a side room. He slammed the control panel, and the metal doors sealed shut behind them. They were breathing hard. Lyra's skin glowed bright with effort, and Jake's hands were burned from blocking a plasma blade. He didn't care. Lyra looked at him, panic in her voice. "He's not just trying to kill you. He's trying to break the bond. If he injures you enough, if your body gives out, the bond will shatter." Jake nodded slowly. "Then we make sure that doesn't happen." He turned to the far wall. A large black terminal sat in the corner, covered in dust. A red EarthGov seal blinked faintly above it. Jake walked to it. This place, it used to be part of a defense program. They were testing something. Biosuits. Weapons made from energy. They'd never finished. But I saw the prototype once when I was exploring. He touched the panel. It scanned his hand. User recognized. System activating. Lyra's eyes widened. "Jake, what are you doing?" "Fighting back." The wall behind the terminal slid open, revealing a chamber lined with coils and glass. Inside hung a suit, silver and dark gray, sleek, unfinished. Lights blinked on the chest piece. Jake stepped toward it. If this thing works, it might just even the odds. He stepped into the suit chamber. The machine hissed, steam rising. Lyra watched, terrified and amazed, as the suit latched onto Jake's body, piece by piece. As it locked into place, the energy inside him reacted. Her bond flowed into the metal, lighting up the entire suit with soft golden glow lines. The door exploded again. Varnock stepped in slowly. But this time, Jake stepped forward to meet him, wearing the suit, eyes glowing with the same energy that lived inside Lyra. Varnock raised an armored hand. "You don't know what you've done, human." Jake's voice was steady. "No, but I know why I'm doing it." He charged. The two forces collided like thunder. Steel against steel. Light against darkness. Every hit shook the floor. Every block sent sparks flying. Varnock was stronger, but Jake was faster now, powered by something deeper than weapons or technology. He fought for choice, for freedom, for her. At one point, Varnock grabbed Jake by the neck and slammed him into a wall. "You're just a miner," Varnock snarled. "You think you matter." Jake spat blood, grinned through the pain. "I matter to her." Then, with a burst of energy, he activated the suit's core. Light exploded from his chest. Varnock screamed and flew backward into the wall. The impact cracked the structure. The ceiling groaned. Jake fell to his knees, panting, the suit flickering. Leora rushed to him. He looked up, eyes still glowing faintly. "Tell me." We stopped him. Leora looked at the dust cloud where Varnock had crashed. But the smoke began to shift. Varnock stood again, cracked armor, bleeding, but still alive. Leora whispered, "No, it's not over." And Varnock's voice came through the silence, darker than ever. "You want a trial of honor?" Then I challenged the human. "A sacred duel. If he wins, I will leave. If he loses, I take you." Jake groaned, struggling to stand. Leora turned to him. "You don't have to accept." Jake looked at her, breathing hard. "I already did," he said. The air inside the ruined science base felt heavier after the challenge was made. Dust still floated in beams of pale light, and distant pieces of debris crumbled from the ceiling. But Jake didn't notice any of that. His eyes were locked on Varnock, who stood like a monster made of steel and rage. The alien warlord's voice still echoed in the walls. A trial of honor. The words sounded ancient, almost ceremonial, but Jake could feel the weight they carried. He had seen how Varnock fought. Strong, brutal, precise. Jake was just a man. A miner. And even with the energy bond and a half-working battle suit, he knew the odds were against him. But something inside him had changed since the day he met Leora. He didn't run anymore. He stood up fully, wincing as the pain ran through his side. The suit had protected him, but he wasn't a soldier. Not yet. Varnock pointed a blade-shaped finger. "The duel will begin in 3 moons. Your kind loves fairness. I will give you time. Train. Prepare. It will make no difference." Then he turned and left through the broken entrance, his soldiers following him like silent shadows. As they disappeared into the night, Leora rushed to Jake's side. "You shouldn't have accepted," she said, voice tight with fear. "Varnock doesn't lose. Ever. That duel, it's not for justice. It's for humiliation. He wants to crush you in front of me." Jake met her eyes. "Then I'll have to surprise him." They left the broken base and traveled deeper into the mountains. There was only one place Jake could think of that might help, a long-abandoned Earth military outpost, hidden under the cliffs. Most people believed it was buried and useless. But Jake had found it once, years ago. And now it was the only hope he had. When they arrived, the place was cold, silent, and dark. Rusted metal doors groaned open after Jake forced the emergency panel to respond. Inside, the hall smelled of oil and ash. Old training rooms, combat simulators, broken androids. But it was enough. Jake began training. Every day, he woke early and pushed his body harder than ever before. He practiced hand-to-hand combat against broken droids, rewired old training bots to attack, and studied alien movement patterns. He sparred against holograms, sometimes getting knocked down again and again, but he always got up. Leora watched him from the shadows, quietly healing his injuries each night with her energy. She barely slept. Her mind raced with memories of her people, her past, her fear. But each time Jake fell and rose again, her heart changed a little more. He wasn't just protecting her anymore. He was choosing her. Late one night, as Jake collapsed to the floor, sweating and bleeding from a cut on his forehead, Leora walked over and knelt beside him. "You should rest," she said softly. Jake laughed weakly. "He won't rest." She reached out and touched his face. "You're different than anyone I've ever known." He looked at her through tired eyes. "I'm just a guy who digs rocks." "No," she said. "You're more than that now." Their hands touched, and for a brief moment, something deeper passed between them. A warmth that wasn't just from the bond. A connection that had grown stronger through pain, fear, and trust. 3 moons passed. The night of the duel arrived. On a wide, flat plateau beneath the stars, the enemies met. Varnock stood with his massive soldiers surrounding him in a circle, watching. Leora stood alone behind Jake, dressed in ceremonial robes from her homeworld, soft gold and silver cloth that shimmered like light. Jake wore the repaired battle suit, now customized and reinforced. He had replaced the broken pieces with crystal plates from his own mines, fused them with Leora's energy, and fine-tuned the internal systems using old Earth software. It wasn't perfect, but it was his. Varnock stepped forward, drawing his weapon. It was a curved blade made of black metal, humming with red light. Jake didn't flinch. A low horn sounded. The duel began. The first strike came fast. Varnock moved like a machine, swinging his blade with terrifying speed. Jake dodged, barely avoiding a clean hit. He rolled and countered, but his strike bounced off the armor. Varnock laughed. "You think training for a few days will save you?" Jake didn't answer. He focused, moved again, ducked low, then jumped and delivered a hard elbow to Varnock's helmet. The warlord stumbled, surprised. The crowd of alien soldiers murmured. The duel continued. Jake fought with everything he had: speed, focus, instincts sharpened by mining under pressure and surviving harsh planets. Every hit he landed was a message. "I am not weak. I am not yours." Varnock grew angrier. His attacks got faster, more brutal. One blow hit Jake's chest, sending him flying backward. The suit cracked. Jake gasped, struggling to breathe. Blood filled his mouth. Lyra screamed his name. But Jake stood up again. "You're done," Varnock growled. "No," Jake said through clenched teeth. "You are." He rushed forward, channeling every ounce of bond energy into one final strike. His fist glowed gold. Varnock raised his blade. But Jake's punch landed first. It struck the warlord's chest with a boom like thunder. The armor shattered. The red lights flickered and went dark. Varnock flew backward, crashing into the rocks behind him. Silence. Then a slow cheer began from Leora's lips. One voice, soft at first, then louder. And suddenly, the soldiers didn't move. They watched, confused, unsure. Jake limped forward, standing over Varnock's body. The warlord was still breathing, barely. Jake looked down. "It's over." Varnock didn't reply. Lyra stepped forward, her hand glowing. "This duel was witnessed. The bond is permanent. The victory is sealed." And just like that, the soldiers turned away. They walked into the shadows and disappeared into the night. Jake collapsed to one knee. His vision blurred. Lyra caught him before he hit the ground. "You did it," she whispered. Jake smiled weakly. "Told you I'd surprise him." She held him close, tears running down her cheeks. But deep in the galaxy, the Empire had taken notice. And the story of a human who broke the royal code was only just beginning. The stars above the battlefield were still silent witnesses to the impossible. Jake, the human miner with no war medals or noble blood, had just defeated Varnock, the feared warlord of the Zoruk Dominion. The duel had ended. The enemy had vanished into the shadows. But Leora knew better. It wasn't truly over. She helped Jake walk, his body trembling from exhaustion. His battle suit was cracked, his face bruised, his breath shallow. But he was alive. The bond still pulsed faintly between them, like a heartbeat shared across space and time. It held them together, but not completely. Not yet. Jake leaned against her as they made their way back to the old military outpost. "He's gone, right?" Leora didn't answer for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. "Varnock won't return. Not as himself. But the Dominion will send others. They won't accept defeat. They'll try to rip the bond apart. By force or by law." Jake frowned. "Law. There's only one place where the bond can be made eternal," she said. "One place that even the Empire respects." Jake waited, eyes half closed. "It's called the Temple of Origin," she whispered. "It's ancient. Older than my people, older than yours. Built by the first ones. If we reach it, and complete the bond before the next starlight alignment. They can't touch us. Ever. Jake nodded slowly, though his head ached. So, another race against time. Leora smiled sadly. Yes. One last one. The journey to the temple began the next morning. They took an old sky skimmer from the buried base, patched together by Jake using leftover parts and Leora's energy. It was barely flight-worthy, but it lifted from the ground with a loud whine and sparks flying behind it. They crossed frozen peaks, burning canyons, and glass deserts. Days passed. The sky changed color. Twin moons followed them at night like watchful eyes. They didn't sleep much. Every hour counted. The temple would open only once, at the edge of the alignment. If they missed it, the bond would remain vulnerable forever, and someone was already following them. Lyra could feel it. Not Varnick, but something worse, something colder. The Dominion had released an enforcer, an ancient being called the Warden. No body, no face, just pure law given form. It existed only to undo illegal bonds, and theirs was the first human bond ever formed. In the nights, Leora whispered ancient songs to keep Jake awake. The energy inside him flickered sometimes, growing weaker after the duel. She gave him more of her own light to keep him going, but it cost her strength. Jake saw it. "You're fading," he said one evening, watching her hands tremble. "I'll be fine when we reach the temple," she lied. He didn't believe her. Finally, they reached the temple. It stood like a mountain carved by gods, massive, glowing with symbols that moved like flowing water. Giant doors guarded its entrance. The starlight overhead had begun to twist, forming spirals of blue and gold in the sky. The alignment was close. Jake stepped forward, but a wave of force knocked him back. Lyra caught him before he fell. "There's a test," she said. "Only bonded pairs may enter. But the temple must believe we're true." Jake wiped blood from his mouth. "We are." "Then show it." The doors opened. Inside, the temple was endless. It shifted around them, walls moving, light bending, showing moments from their past. Jake saw images of Earth, of his lost life, of pain he had buried. Lyra saw the palace halls, her cruel engagement, the prison of her bloodline. The temple showed everything. Then it tested them. In one chamber, Jake was offered a way out, a door back to Earth, riches, freedom, peace. But only if he left Leora behind. He stepped past it without hesitation. In another room, Leora was shown a vision. Jake dead, her bond shattered, but her people finally free from war. The voices of her ancestors begged her to let go, to abandon the bond. She fell to her knees, but stood again. "I choose him," she said, "even if it dooms everything else. I choose him." They reached the heart of the temple. A circle of floating stones hovered in midair. In the center was a single platform, glowing with white light. Above it, the stars had aligned fully, forming the shape of a ring in the sky. But then the Warden appeared. It didn't walk. It didn't speak. It just arrived, like a shadow cast by fear itself. A figure of pure energy, cloaked in a storm of cold wind and dark light. It moved forward, and with a wave of its hand, Jake was flung across the chamber. "No!" Lyra screamed. The Warden raised a hand toward her. The bond mark on her arm began to smoke. Jake crawled toward her, his suit cracked beyond repair, blood running down his face. He reached her just in time, grabbing her hand, holding tight. The temple responded. The circle of light burst open, the floor trembled, and the platform rose into the air. They stood together, hand in hand, bathed in white fire. Lyra looked at Jake. "Say it again, please." Jake looked into her eyes, through the pain, through the doubt. "I accept you. In this life. In all lives." Lyra's voice joined his. "I choose you. Beyond time. Beyond worlds." The light exploded. The Warden screamed, and vanished into dust. The temple glowed so bright it looked like a new star had been born. And then, silence. When it faded, they stood alone. The bond mark was gone. In its place, a glowing ring floated between their hands, a living symbol of their union. Jake looked down at it. Is that permanent? Leora smiled, tears in her eyes. Yes. He touched her face gently. Good. I like permanent. And far across the galaxy, a message rippled through star systems and empires. A human and a royal have bonded in the Temple of Origin. The bond is true. It is eternal. It cannot be undone. But their story wasn't over. Because while the Empire feared the bond, others wanted to use it. And peace was still a long way off. The sky above Earth looked different when seen through new eyes. Jake stood at the edge of a quiet hill overlooking the Pacific Ocean, the waves below glowing under the golden rays of sunset. His boots crunched softly against the grass, and the warm wind carried the scent of salt and memory. Behind him, birds flew low in peaceful circles, and far in the distance, city lights flickered to life as the day prepared to sleep. Beside him stood Leora. She wore a long coat over a soft earth dress, the fabric flowing gently in the wind. Her silver hair shimmered under the sun, though now it was tied loosely at the back. No longer in hiding, no longer fading. She was real, alive, and free. And for the first time in her life, at peace. Jake handed her a cup of tea, simple, warm, and human. She took it with a small smile, something she had learned recently. Smiling was still new to her, but it came easier now, especially when he was near. They had returned to Earth 2 weeks ago. The temple had transported them across space in a beam of light, dropping them near Earth's orbit inside a drifting satellite shell. Rescue drones found them quickly. News spread even faster. At first, Earth's governments had no idea what to do with them. An alien princess bonded to a human minor, a ceremony that broke 10 galactic treaties. The whispers of war echoed through political halls. Scientists begged for interviews. Diplomats requested peace talks. Journalists offered money for their story. Jake refused them all. He just wanted to go home. And so, here they were, hiding in plain sight on the outskirts of California. A small cabin, a simple life, and the stars above. But peace never stayed for long. One morning, a message arrived. A strange glowing orb hovered over their home, pulsing with blue light. It projected a voice, clear, deep, and gentle. To Jake of Earth and Leora of Thalzur, the High Galactic Council summons you. Jake raised an eyebrow. Summons, like, we have to go. The orb continued. You are the first cross-species bond confirmed in over 10,000 cycles. The galaxy watches you. The Empire crumbles in confusion. The people are asking questions. They need your answer. Leora stepped forward. What answer? What happens next? The orb vanished. Jake sat on the porch that evening, staring up at the stars, his mind spinning. He had never wanted to be special. He had only wanted to survive. But now, the entire galaxy wanted him to speak. He looked at Leora, who sat beside him, hands curled around a cup of cocoa. What do you want to do? He asked. She looked up at the sky, quiet for a long time. I want to live, not for politics or laws or old bloodlines. I want to walk in your markets. I want to eat your strange foods. I want to see the ocean. I want to laugh. And when we're ready, maybe we can show the galaxy what love really looks like. Jake smiled. That's a good plan. So, they agreed. They would go to the council. Not as heroes, not as rebels, just as two people who chose each other when the stars tried to pull them apart. Their ship was sent days later, sleek, silver, and smooth like glass. Earth officials waved goodbye nervously. Jake and Leora boarded it hand in hand, eyes forward. The journey through space was faster now. The temple's energy flowed in both of them. They could sense things others couldn't, pressure in the void, signals in the starlight, whispers between suns. And when they arrived at the great station of the Galactic Council, they stepped out not as enemies, but as symbols. The council room was massive, with beings of every shape, size, and color. Some floated, some slithered, some hummed instead of spoke. All of them stared in silence as Jake and Leora walked to the center. A voice boomed from the sky. "You have broken the old order. What do you say in your defense?" Jake looked around, heartbeat calm. He took Leora's hand gently. He raised his voice. "I didn't know what I was doing when I said yes to her. I was scared, confused, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let someone own her. I wasn't going to let fear make my choice for me." He paused, eyes sweeping the room. "I didn't save her. She saved me. From my past. From myself." He looked at Leora, his voice softening. "She came to me broken. I was broken too. But together, we found something worth holding on to." Leora stepped forward. "Our bond was not an accident. It was not rebellion. It was love. Real, messy, painful, beautiful love. We don't ask for power. We only ask for peace." Silence followed. Then, slowly, the council leader stood, a tall being made of crystal and smoke. He bowed. "Then let the galaxy learn from you. Let them see what true unity means." Jake exhaled. It was over. No more running. No more fighting. The bond, once doubted by the stars themselves, was now a beacon for the future. Years passed. Jake and Leora didn't become rulers or warriors. They became teachers, travelers, peacemakers. They spoke to worlds where love was forbidden, where fear ruled hearts. And slowly, very slowly, things began to change. On one quiet evening, back on Earth, they sat again on that same hill. Leora held a small child in her arms. Their daughter, born of two worlds, human and alien, light and earth. Jake looked at the stars, the same ones that once watched him run through desert storms and frozen canyons. He smiled. "I never thought I'd get here," he said. Leora leaned her head on his shoulder. "Neither did I." The child laughed as a shooting star streaked across the sky. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, the Temple of Origin pulsed once more, quietly witnessing a story that began with a desperate plea and ended with a promise that changed the galaxy forever.